What's up, my homies? We're here to talk about the French Revolution. And it begins with financial problems in France, which really shouldn't shock us because, for gosh sakes, we've been talking about France going to war and losing at war quite a bit, especially with Louis XIV. He went to war very often, vast majority of his reign, and homie did not really have much to show for it except debt. What's more, he was spending all kinds of dough on Versailles. And then you remember Louis XV came along, pretty much during the 18th century. He was involved in the War of Austrian Succession and the 7 Years' War. Those are expensive. Finally, we end up with Louis XVI. And Louis XVI is going to finish off France. Now, he's this fella right here. Handsome fellow. Louis Capet was his name, actually. I'm being sarcastic. He had been married off to Marie Antoinette, and Marie Antoinette was the daughter of Maria Theresa, sorry, I always say Teresa. Maria Theresa. Marie Antoinette spoke French, but she did not speak it super well, not well enough, without an accent, to really make a lot of people happy. And then what's more, she's kind of arrogant about it. She comes over when she's very young. Both of them are like 14, 15 years old. Very young, awkward. Louis Capet, as you see, he's kind of chubby even as a young man. One of his mistresses calls him a fat, ill-bred boy. Poor fella. And that's your mistress, bro. That's not cool. And Marie Antoinette is something of a spender. I mean, if you really think about it, she comes over to France. She doesn't really know anybody. Her husband is kind of disinterested in her, despite the fact she's supposed to be all that in a bag of chips. And she starts kind of finding friends via money things. Like, oh, hey, let's gamble. Oh, hey, let's dance. Oh, hey, let's YOLO. You know how the kids are. And she even has herself a little peasant cottage built back in the back behind Versailles. So, she can experience what it's like to be a peasant without, meeting any peasants. And this, later on, when this is, discovered and even heard about, people are not especially happy. Because you look at these pictures, this is gorgeous. This is like rich people treehouse kind of stuff. This is not what peasant cottages actually looked like in the 18th century. Supposedly, she was known for saying, "Let them eat cake." This is false. She did not really ever say that. The story is that the people were starving and she was told about it. And she said, "Oh, well, why don't they just eat cake instead?" She didn't say that. She was dopey, but she probably never said that. She gets nicknames because of her spending, including, but not limited to, Madame Deficit. A deficit is when you're spending too much. And sure enough, by the time she's really racking up the expenditures, France is majorly in debt. I gave you a bunch of examples. Louis XVI adds to that debt, not only with his wife's spending, but also because he supports the Americans, America, and the American Revolution, kind of to get back at the British. Is that NI? What was that, NI? She also has another nickname. She's from Austria. Supposedly, she is friendly to people. So, you know how people, haters gonna hate, as the kids say also. So the king says, yo, I gotta be a man of action. Problem is, he's not very good at being a man of action because he's kind of flip-floppy on different issues. So he says, all right, I need to raise taxes. And everybody's like, okay, you're not strong enough to just do that. You're going to have to call the Estates General. Technically, if you really want to get into it, he calls first the Assembly of Notables, who are like the who's who of the upper echelon of the nobles and stuff. And they're like, yo, no, we're not going to pay more taxes because we don't like paying taxes. So he's like, all right, well, then I'll call a meeting of the States General. States General has not been called since Henry IV. just to go in order here, we had Henry IV. That was the War of the Three Henrys. That was in the 1500s, yo. And then we had Louis XIII, Louis XIV, Louis XV. Are you sensing a pattern? And then we got Louis XV, or 16th. Ooh, I messed up my own pattern. Who put this in here? I don't even know. This is silly. Anyway, so the last time it had been called was 1614. The Estates General is made up of 3 different estates, and it's the way that the French were categorized by officially the government. You had the first estate, and that's the Catholic Church here, okay? The clergy, they call them. They get 300 representatives. That doesn't mean there's only 300 clergymen in France. Clergy would be everything from like your parish priest, the guys at the lowest level in the little villages and towns, all the way up to bishops. Bishops probably aren't coming out, but for the most part, if you're making the journey, you probably got a little bit of, you know what I'm saying? That was money. Again, in case you missed it. Then you got the aristocracy. You might be all like, aristocracy? What's that all about? Sounds very British. It does sound very British, but it's just a word. For our purposes, just assume it means nobles. People with a title. And you have been, if you had a title, acknowledged by the king as being someone who is friendly to the king's interests. So, 300 of those people. Now, here's an interesting question. Are all nobles rich? That's the stereotype, right? Well, remember Titanic? Was Rose's family rich? No. Remember, they'd lost their money. They had a title still. They had status in the community, but they were not rich. Well, in real life, there were people who had land or they had a title, but they didn't have a lot of money. Maybe they'd made bad decisions financially. Maybe they'd wasted it, frittered it away, whatevs. So there were aristocracy members aristocrats would be another way to say that, who were not as wealthy, all the way down to people who have a title, and that's pretty much it. Of course, you also got the stereotypical, the rich people up as well. And then you have everybody else. Okay, aristocracy got 300 people. Clergy got 300 people. Commoners would be anybody who is not those people. Clergy makes up about 1% of the population. Aristocracy makes up about 2% of the population. Mr. Oliver, math says that means the commoners make up 97%. I'm drawing with my left hand in a mouse. So, students are coming. So like 97% are commoners. And the commoners, that's a lot of different groups. I mean, you got people who are fairly wealthy, wealthier than some aristocrats, up in what they call the bourgeoisie. And they're like doctors, lawyers, etc. They're like wealthy, it could be wealthy merchants up here, all the way down to the poorest of the poor, like dirt farmers, like Cletus, all the way down here, and everything in between, tradesmen, blacksmiths, everything. They get 648 members in the States General. And you go like, oh, well, that makes sense. There's more of them, so they get more represented in the vote. But this is not the way it works. The way it works is these 300 people, these 300 representatives, take a vote. They get one vote. The nobles, 300 of them, they take a vote. At the end, they get one vote. So they say, hey, should we raise taxes on poor people? Clergy, they all debate about it. 288 to 12. Okay, the majority voted yes, so that's their vote. Same thing. Nobles overwhelmingly say yes, so that's their vote. Commoners, 648 of them, so they got a lot of people, but they only get one vote from all those people. The 648 just represent a discussion group. Well, if you're good at math, these two are going to outnumber this one, because 2 is bigger than 1. So you say, well, why don't the commoners just make an alliance with wealthy clergy, who pay so few taxes that it's actually voluntary? It's customary to give a gift Oh, well, what about the aristocracy? They pay taxes, right? Not much. They don't pay many taxes at all. You know who pays most of the taxes? Commoners. You know who's most angry about that? Commoners. See, so they only got one. I forgot about that. That's why I was drawing it. But isn't it pretty, though? Which one's better? Be honest. This or this? It's this one, actually. This page. The one that's typed is better. All right. So, the Third Estate refuses to do any business whatsoever until they change the voting rules. And they start calling themselves the National Assembly. They say, look, we are no longer the Third Estate. We're going to go off, we're going to do our own thing, and now we are independent. You want to join us? Come on. Together, we'll talk about the problems, raise taxes, whatever we need to do. But we are no longer part of your old system. That's 1790 late, 80 late. We're 1789. Okay, it didn't work. That didn't work. But you see what I'm saying. And they invite members of the First and Second Estate to join them. And you say, like, why would rich people go want to help these people, these poor people, vote better? Well, remember, some of these guys are bourgeoisie. They're richer. But the First and Second Estate, like I said, I made a very conspicuous point of pointing it out. Not all of them were rich. There were some that were sympathetic to the plight of the Third Estate. And, I might also add, sympathetic to Enlightenment ideals. Because remember, a lot of those Enlightenment dudes were rich, right? So, they come over and they're like, bruh, let's stay together. The Third Estate's like, we're the National Assembly now, bruh. Because, look across the sea. It's England. And England had a pretty successful system, a constitutional monarchy. And their nobles were doing pretty good. So some nobles, not all, not even the majority, a percentage, a small percentage, we're coming over to be like, hey, let's do this National Assembly thing. Let's see how it works. And they take a pledge. They say, we are not going to disband until we have a new constitution. This is a portrait of that by Jacques Louis David. You could say David if you want to sound super America. Jacques Louis David. Let's say David. It makes you sound more international. Now, you see in this picture, you got the billowing curtains. You got everyone very heroically standing, giving. I've actually had students be like, "Were they Nazis?" They're not Nazis. This is a Roman salute. The Nazis have kind of ruined this for everyone. Also, small mustaches, but that was a thing that the Romans used to do to show unity. Here, they are showing unity. The French are in honor of the Roman, presumably, Republic, probably not the Empire. So the king says, nope, sends in the army to stop them. Okay, first, he had locked the doors. Like, that's why they actually did the tennis court assembly, or tennis court oath, because he'd locked the doors to the National Assembly. So they were like, oh, what are we going to do, bro? And he's like, I guess you can't meet. And they're like, we'll just meet in the tennis court. And by the way, is it even like a tennis court like we think of? Is this like, I almost said bend it like Beckham. I'm pretty sure that's not a tennis guy. I think he's a soccer guy. This is like an indoor, like, I guess we'd call it like a handball or racquetball type court. And that tennis was different then. Today's news. Things were different then. Anyway, the king dismissed some of his liberal ministers. Like I said, he's wishy-washy. If he had committed to a pattern of change, he could have saved himself so much grief. One of his liberal ministers is a guy named Jacques Necker, and Jacques Necker was very popular. He had advocated making sure the poor had enough to eat and all that. And when the king fires him, people are like, what? Now, something else to note. This National Assembly and the representatives of the Third Estate, these are not all like poor farmers. In fact, most poor farmers could not afford to go there. These are people who are primarily bourgeois or wealthy Third Estate members. They are generally well educated. They're generally schooled in the Enlightenment, and they go with this intention of having, hey, something different. We don't want to have a top-down approach of absolutism. This here is a political. Oh, let me get it. All right, let's look here. What we got here? We got this political cartoon, and we got this fella right here. What do you suppose he represents? Look at the way he's dressed. Now there, he's a second estate fella. That fella there, he's a noble, aristocrat. Who we got here? Who's this fella? Reckon he's a clergyman. And down here, well, if this guy represents the second estate, this guy represents the first estate. Down here, this fella, I suppose he's the third estate. And what's this? He's got chains. He's removing those chains, just like America did. And what's he reaching for? Reaching for a gun. I wonder what he's going to do about it. I don't know what he's going to do about it. Those fellas right there, they look a little nervous. Reckon they ought to be. Because the third estate's been kept down for a long time. All right. So, in summer of 1789, let's paint the picture. By the way, this is the year of the French Revolution, obviously. I have a way I help my students remember it. I tell them, it's a dumb joke, but it helps you remember it. Remember that joke? Why is 6 afraid of 7? Because 7, 8, 9. And the 6 in this analogy, I suppose, is the nobles. And the 7 is the third estate. I don't know. It falls apart. But you do need to know this date. This date is one of the key dates in European history. Also notice it comes after the American Revolution, which we previously talked about. But the American Revolution bankrupted France. I mean, even further than they already were bankrupt. I mean, you can only be bankrupt so many times. I mean, for gosh sakes, 50% of the French national debt, 50% of the French national budget was going towards paying interest on all of their debt. Not even paying off the debt, just paying off the price of borrowing the debt. And on top of that, you got bread prices going up. What's the primary thing that the poor are eating? If you said bread, you were right. You're right, good. High unemployment in Paris. And then a rumor starts that the king is going to bring the army in to bust up some heads. People are all like, oh no. If they're coming, maybe I need to defend myself. Well, but where are we going to defend ourselves? Says one peasant. Another's like, well, we could go use our pitchforks against guns. Unlikely. Best, we should go to the royal fortress that had once been used as a symbol of the king's power to house and torture the king's enemies. The guy's like, why are you talking like that, bro? He's like, because I'm not getting enough food and I'm malnourished. He's like, oh, all right. So you're saying we should go to the Bastille, which once was used to house multiple enemies of the king. Now it's primarily used as an armory with gunpowder and whatnot. And the other guy's like, yeah. So they bust in on July 14th, 1789 to the Bastille. And the Bastille, this is actually a holiday today. It's on Bastille Day, July 14th. So should it ever be July 14th, wish someone a happy Bastille Day. Now this is a picture of the peasants charging it. And all my students are always like, well, didn't the guards have guns? Yeah, they did. Okay, so here, you be the peasants. We're going to play right now. You be the peasants, and I'll be the guards. Hey, get out of here. Okay, now start coming at me like you want to murder me. Boom! Oh, I'm dead. Did you notice that? Were you able to reach the screen before I could reload? Yeah, you know who else could do that? Hundreds of peasants. And they tear apart these guards. They're all like, ah! And they cut off their heads, put them on pikes, march around with them all over the place. And take the gunpowder. Okay, you want to play history time? It's a history time. Okay, look at this picture. Okay, well, it's over now, isn't it? Okay, look at this picture. Imagine the Bastille. Then imagine it's not there anymore. I went to the Bastille when I was in Paris, and I was all like, bruh, where's the Bastille? And they were like, you're right next to it. And I was like, what? They're like, well, it's not there anymore, obviously. There's one brick. And it was the saddest thing. I didn't even take a picture of it because it was the saddest thing. It was like one little brick, like right there. And it was like, yeah, it's like a cornerstone or whatever. He could have just been messing with me, but it was in the right location in Paris. But nothing was left. The peasants tore it down brick by brick and then sold them as souvenirs. Next time somebody's like, oh my god, your generation is like so commercial. All you care about is stuff. You could be like, in 1789, in the middle of taking apart the Bastille, people were selling bricks. Okay, so I'm not the only one who wants souvenirs, Mom. I need to commemorate this moment. Let me take a selfie.
But first, let me take a selfie.
Alright, meanwhile, in the countryside, all over France, people are having revolts. The peasants are revolting. The king's like, tell me about it, bro. He's like, no, for reals. Peasants are rising up all over France. Now, this is cleverness, actually, on their part. They see an opportunity here, and they go after things that symbolize the noble's power over them. So, like, deeds, records, things like that. Remember, you're not talking about serfs, but you still have people, peasants, who are in massive debt, who have their lives under the control of others. And the peasants are all like, oh, you own this land? Noble's like, well, you know we do, yes. And the peasants are all like, what would you do if I were to, I don't know, destroy the thing that says you own it? That was plain. And the noble's like, oh my lord, what have you done? We even, oh, sorry, I jumped there. So, the National Assembly is given the right to get back together. The king's like, whoa, guys. Whoa. Things have gotten out of control. Let's stay together, okay? And so everybody's like, all right, cool. It's okay for a little while. Then in October, bread price is high again. Dude. And the women take to the streets. And these are, my favorite thing, I don't know if you guys have watched that French Revolution movie that the History Channel did. My favorite thing about that movie is that they say, these are brawny women, the fish market women. This is the best, the way she says it is like, oh my god, can you believe they're like that? These are women who are working with their hands, they are not squeamish, and they're all like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go all the way to Versailles, and we're going to find all of the flour they have, bring back all their food, and you know what? While we're at it, we might also, I don't know, kill the queen. Kill her. It gets intense. They don't kill the queen, by the way, but they do drag the king and the queen back to Paris. And so Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette are no longer as far away. So this enters the constitutional period of the French Revolution where, okay, if you really get into studying the 18th century, you'll notice it's more complicated than this. I'm giving you like a very brief version because, frankly, it's complicated, and also you don't really need it for this class because it's a general overview, right? But there is the National Assembly, then there's the Constituent Assembly, then there's the Constitutional Convention, and then there's the blah, 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 blah. Just call them the National Assembly if you want. That's cool. And they say they are all about liberty, equality, and fraternity, brotherhood. They emphasize the importance of equality and meritocracy. Their goal is not just to get a constitution now. Their goal is to revamp society, to remake it so that we have no longer 3 estates, but rather France, all together. We're all equal. You're a noble? Good for you, bruh. You got more money than me. You know what? We are equal. Mr. Oliver, that kind of sounds like the Enlightenment. Don't it? The crowning achievement of this is the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen, and you might notice that I'm cheating here and I'm going out of order, but whatever, it's my presentation, not yours. This is a symbol of free thought and enlightenment, by the way, although some conspiracy-minded people will be all like, Illuminati. And I was just listening to Jay-Z when this came on, so obviously it's true. Anyway, that's the Declaration of the Rights of the Man and the Citizen. Notice the noun, citizen, because all people are equal, so we call each other citizens. They adopt a new flag. If you are inclined to support the revolution, you're wearing a red cap. That's it right there. It's called the Tricolor is the flag, and the little cap represents that you are a patriot that cares about the government. See, that's fancy. They even get a new national anthem, and the national anthem, of course, very famous. It is called La Marseillaise. It is the French national anthem. I was going to try to kind of enchant you with it. Now, I'm not a singer. Let's go, children of the nation. The day of glory has arrived. Against us stands tyranny. The bloody standard is raised. Usually standard's like a flag. The bloody standard is raised. Do you hear in your fields? So appealing to farmers. The baying of these ferocious soldiers. They come into our arms and slit the throats of our sons and our women. To arms, citizens! Form your battalions. Now, this can be used as against a foreign army, or it could be used as against a against the king's soldiers as well. That's my favorite one. They just said, the impure blood will water the furrows of our fields. That's not from the agricultural revolution. Anyway, it's a very militaristic song, but it also is a song that really puts everybody, gets you worked up. It gets you like, hey guys, we're French together. We'll stand against our enemies. And sure enough, there's going to be enemies soon. So what's the Declaration of the Rights of the Man and Citizen all about? Well, it says the law applies equally to everybody. I already kind of said that, where we're all equal. Adopts a little thing out of Rousseau. It says the law is an expression of the general will. So it represents the will of the people. Not just you rich fat cats, but the people. You have an abolition officially of social classes, a new paper currency, the assignat, a metric system adoption, and a perhaps misstep. They say, hey church, you got to say you're loyal to the country before the church. Okay, which church are they talking about? The Catholic Church, obviously, right? Because the Catholic Church is like the French Church. But the clergy having to take loyalty oaths to the state above the church, that's not real popular. Some people flat out refuse. They get jailed or whatever. Others are more like, well, okay, maybe I'll do it and kind of go along, but on the DL, I'm not really for it. Some just like, nope, out, leave. This will create problems later on. They plant liberty trees, symbolic of the flourishing nation, get it? And Louis accepts the Constitution. Louis XVI could have stayed alive. He really could have. But all he had to do was not abandon the principles of the revolution. All he had to do was say, okay, guys, and then genuinely go along with it. In 1689, William and Mary didn't try to buck the system. They just said, like, all right, you know what? We're less powerful now. The people are a little bit more powerful, the people being the rich parliament, but okay. Would have been the same thing here, because the National Assembly, you're still talking about a relatively small group, but they want to expand the vote and whatnot, but probably still would have been the wealthiest of the wealthy. So he could have kept his head. But his problem is he doesn't go along with it in his heart. He tries to escape. Memo to yourselves. Don't try to escape a country if your face is on the money. His face is... He's well known. He's the king. And he gets caught trying to escape. They're upset. People are like, what? You tried to escape, bro? And other nations are like, whoa, 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 whoa. Did you just arrest the king? And they're like, yeah, he tried to escape. That's treason, bro. And people are like, you can't be arresting the king, yo. Austria says, hey, you better stop it, or else we might have to get involved. And the French take that as, we better declare war on Austria. All right, reality check. Most of the people in the French army who are officers are the rich. So, some of those people have fled. And now, the army does not have as strong leadership as it once did. Also, Austria didn't declare war on them. They just said, like, hey, leave the queen alone, leave the king alone. They could have done that. But France is all like, nuh-uh, let's do this. So France declares war on Austria. Shortly afterwards, Prussia will get involved as well. They did have stunning fashion. I just wanted to point this out here. And I'm going to stop here, and we will resume in part 2.